To err is human. To forgive is divine. As a people and a nation, we have erred, but only few brave ones who understood that bloated ego, arrogance, and self-pride are tools of destruction have come to experience inner peace that comes with the words, "I am sorry." We never would have known how deep we have sunk morally and spiritually if the Oputa panel had not been. It opened a warehouse of mischief in governance, brutality in leadership, opportunism in power, intrigues and conspiracy in high and low places, sycophancy in advice, divide and rule in ethnicity, bigotry in religion, truth being told and twisted by lies, rights being denied, and of wrong being right. We cried and laughed as we were told about our lives behind the Iron Curtain and of our yesterdays that glorified fools. What follows is a lesson in forgiveness, of the courage to accept when we go wrong and say, "I am sorry," and mean it. For therein lies our ability to heal the wounds of the past, present, and future. The pictures speak for themselves.
Balo, pia ogoni balo, ile jira, konyo, wea zinya. Agreed to organize a reunion ceremony as a public demonstration of the actualization of this agreement and to de-emphasize the dichotomy of Ogoni 4 and Ogoni 9 by a deliberate effort to dismantle all structures that tend to beatify one and vilify the other.
Next is signing of the document.
Witness, please. Thank you.
Mr. Tona, if you are hearing me, I allowed the soldiers to beat you for two reasons. One, I never will want to show that I'm taking side with any coupists at that material time. My safety first. And second, to justify my loyalty to the government because any other soldier or officer who may saw you beaten, and for me to intervene, the report may be that I am sympathetic to the coupist. And any aid in any direction by any soldier of coup against government is in itself a capital offense. For this, you were beaten. For the first time, I'm telling you this.
I was never beaten for the first 3 weeks that I was brought into custody. Nobody touched me. The first 3 weeks I was in custody because I came with that order from Raji Rasaki that they should make sure they don't torture this innocent man. And that the beating never came up until this Eze appeared. It was on the appearance of this Eze, Emmanuel Eze, an immigration officer, who is Mustafa's friend, who was a witness in the case, that told Mustafa that I was the person that escorted my brother to the border to travel. That was the day we were enraged and ordered over 8 officers to pick me up. And when I broke loose, I came to you and told you, order your men to stop this beating. And you accepted when it was sympathetic, and you ordered that beating should stop, and ordered my going to the underground.
you are the fountainhead of the coup of 1997.
Well,
Do you agree?
that has been disapproved. You know who the man is. That's General Dia. You know it very well.
But it has been said in the course of the testimony before this commission that the coup should rather be retitled Dia Bamayiku. What's your response to that?
Well, you should first of all find out who said that and for what reasons. It was a clear Dia coup.
After the 1997 phantom coup, that I realized all that happened. That if how I was treated is what happened in 1995, then they are all phantom. And the same people responsible for 1995 are the same people in 1997.
We have discovered that something was wrong with that coup plan. This same general decided that everybody is crying up now. Somebody called him and said, look, you people are up to something. And it's like the head of state is aware. You have to do everything possible to stop it, or you get out of that plan. General Disa called me, and we all went to General, I went to General Dia, and I told him, sir, this is the situation on the ground now. He said no. He called somebody, and after a while, he now reassured me that all is well.
My Lord, in the military system, we respect seniority and hierarchy. If, as the current Chief of Army Staff, I come to stand before you here and say that a brigade commander prompted you to overthrow the government, I think I'll look the most stupid person. It should be the other way around. If you're number 2 man in the government, as far as I'm concerned, Ishaya Bame was not even number 4 or 5. Patrick Aziza is even my junior. Magashi is my junior. For anybody who is number 2 in the government to come before this type of tribunal, where we are trying to heal wounds and make such a statement, I think the statement of a struggling man. I'll just leave it at that.
Excuse me. My Lord, it is people like Tokoya that have been misleading Nigerians. My Lord.
Okay, my
Lord. My Lord. If you see, my Lord, if you read the array of writings on my person, you can't believe it. I swore by the Holy Quran that I will tell the truth. My Lord, I told the end part of his Agbada, but I have my reasons.
For tearing my Agbada?
Hey, wait.
Yes.
I'm a trained military police officer.
Yes.
One of our teachings.
I wish you know what is going in my mind. Why is he able to stay in that place for more than 1 minute? That is the one I don't understand.
My Lord,
in the villa, why was he able to stay in the villa for so long?
Well, thank you, my Lord.
My Lord, you know, sorry, just to answer your question, what is clear from all this theater is that, quite frankly, rather than it is Nigeria that should be pitied. This, to me, is what the total commentary of all this.
Thank you, my Lord.
And those who messed up with Yomi Tokoya under whatever banner, we are the ones who should be pitied for having lived with all this. But this is the reality of our national history. And I don't think that there is anything that can be added, because for me, I feel thoroughly humiliated as a Nigerian. That these were the kind of advice, and this is what we went through. We can only hope that. I think that.
Thank you, my Lord.
I think that the last document that Omar Shitian tendered, which shows that there are still those whom we elected who are in power today that are still patronizing Yomi Tokoya.
Yes.
You should tell us
and they will continue
all this should tell us where we are today. And the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Ndibo soon began to notice sinister strengths in the responses of some national leaders to their differences in Ndibo.
The military have been politicized from things I've mentioned earlier about the mirroring the divisions into the army. But the actual step that gave expression to this. And I agree with you. You are right there.
So you agree that January 66 was the beginning of politicization of the military?
No, my answer the way I put it.
No, yes or no?
No, I won't say yes or no to a question.
No, in this case, it's yes or no.
No.
Are you prepared to accept yes or no?
I'll give you an answer which I think is appropriate.
That is, things are either right or wrong. No half measures.
Sorry, the answer?
Things are either right or wrong.
Yes.
Did the military first make their first adventure into democratic constitutional life in January 66 or not?
Sorry, come again, please.
Did the military make their first incursion into constitutional democracy and violence in January 66 or not?
Yes, you're right.
I have come here because I believe in reconciliation.
Good.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
That's why I said, can you two reconcile?
Indeed, we reconcile.
Yes.
But then...
General, you are taller than he is. All right. Thank you very much. Thank both of you.
Thank you.
That is the spirit. Yes. Our job here really is to try and see if we can lay the foundation of a better Nigeria.
With all due respect, knowing General Yakubu Danjuma, who was the chief of staff, army, he will not just go out, if that is the case, and just shout to people, to nobody, and say, go and get me that bloody man, fella, dead or alive. That is not,
so it is not
Yakubu Danjuma.
Yes, thank you very much.
Please, 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 please. But if you believe that Yakubu Danjuma said that, he did not say that because anybody gave him that instruction.
Thank you very much.
But he's alive, and you can find out from him.
Thank you very much.
Now let me go on again. You said that Jokolo even gave you chapters and verses. The names he mentioned are alive. I think if you want to find out the fact, my own conclusion will be that this is probably a tissue of fabrications. Probably a tissue of fabrications. But if you want to find out the fact, call those people. They are alive, and they will tell you.
The commission, in spite of the tales of war from Ogoniland, was still intent to achieve reconciliation based on truth and the knowledge of the truth in our land. Our assignment was to help the nation look at its past, to help the nation face that past truthfully and honestly, and then learn the lessons that that past has to teach. And it is true that acknowledgement of the past is part of the process of healing. And turning our bitter past into a better future is a challenge facing not only this commission, but facing Nigeria and Nigerians as a whole. It is a charge of Mr. President in his address to the nation when he assumed office on the 29th of May, 1999. There he said, Mr. President addressed, "Let us rise as one to face the task ahead and turn this daunting scene into a new dawn." This was the assignment he gave us, and this is the motive force behind the patient exertions of this commission.
With the emergence of a democratically elected government and the fall of military dictatorship in Nigeria in 1999, the then President's chief Olusegun Obasanjo set up the Human Rights Violation and Investigation Commission, also known as the Oputa Panel, a moniker from the Commission's leader, Justice Oputa. Its mandate was to investigate human rights during the period of military rule from 1984 to 1999 and to facilitate reconciliation among affected individuals and communities. On this channel, I've posted hundreds of hours of the Commission's sittings, and one question that keeps popping up is, whatever became of the reports from the Commission? Well, the short answer to that question is nothing. Absolutely nothing. The Commission submitted its final report to President Obasanjo in 2002, but the government has not taken any action to date. Its report was not released to the public until 2005, when it was published by two activist groups, the Nigerian Democratic Movement and Nigerian-based Civil Society Forum. In this two-part video, we will x-ray some of the characters that emerged from the Commission, their whereabouts today, and will witness the official handing over of the Oputa panel reports to the government. If you would like to see more Oputa panel videos, let us know in the comment section, and also don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video.
My favorite beatitude says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." May I seize this opportunity to salute members of the Commission and to recognize them. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission, Honorable Justice Chukwudifu Oputa, CFR. Thank you. He has risen for recognition. Reverend Father Matthew Hassan Kuka. Mr. Bala Ngelari. Mrs. Elizabeth Palm. Mrs. Modukbe Areola. Alhaji Adamu Lawal Bamali, and the Secretary to the Commission, Alhaji Numan Barau Dambata. A member of the Commission, scholar, preacher, philosopher, activist, commentator, orator, conciliator, the irrepressible Reverend Father Dr. Matthew Kuka will now present highlights of the report. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Father Kuka.
Your Excellency, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar Turakin Adamawa, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, my Lord, Honorable Justice Mohammed Owais, Chief Justice of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, members of the Executive Council, honorable members of the National Assembly here present, permanent secretaries, my Lord, bishops, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Actually, my job has been made very easy. Unlike the Attorney General, I don't have the burden of speaking about the president or about a human being. I only have the honor of commenting on such inanimate objects like pieces of papers. Because I'm going to be speaking very briefly to you on the summary of what the report really contains. I'm supposed to be trying to sum up for you 30,000 pages of the transcripts of the public hearing, not to talk of about 50 cartons of material, as you are soon going to see. I'm not here to tell the story of the Oputa Commission. My job is to simply try and say in as few words as possible how this long, tortuous, but highly exciting and very fulfilling task has been finally brought to the stage we are in now. We can only say that we have come so far by the grace of God and the love of Nigerians. I do not wish to anticipate the chairman's comments, but I can personally speak for myself, for the chairman and members of the commission, that the amount of love, respect, and affection which the members of this commission enjoy as we travel the length and breadth of our beloved country all bore testimony to the fact that indeed, for this nation, no problems are insurmountable. We therefore pray that Nigerians will continue to critically examine government initiatives and give those initiatives that are worthy all the support that they deserve. This report is made up of 10 copies each of the 7 volumes that constitute the main report. When we set out on this journey, we believed with all our hearts that the federal government of Nigeria had indeed embarked on a noble cause. There were those who intellectually and otherwise and politically argued that indeed the commission may have been set up as a heuristic device or as a red herring to distract the attentions of Nigerians from the inadequacies of the government of the day. But we were deeply convinced that this commission, whatever may be its limitations, will have a wonderful opportunity to present Nigerians with a chance that may never come again. So we embraced it rather enthusiastically. And since it was a road that had never been taken, we thought that we were really, as members of the commission, specially privileged to be on the threshold of national history. We believe that if we took advantage of the situation and made the necessary sacrifice, we could use the commission to restructure and change our perception of one another, our culture, and our collective views of our nation. We were philosophically convinced that Nigerians had been collectively humiliated, denigrated, and reduced to a status below what they ought to be as human beings with the years of military rule. We believed that, like our industries, ordinary Nigerians were all producing below installed capacity. Thus, we ask ourselves the basic questions. How could we use this opportunity to help Nigerians scale the fence and see that we were all collectively suffering together, not because we were Christians or because we were Muslims, not because we were from the north or from the south, not because we were Igbos, not because we were Yorubas, not because we were Hausa, not because we were Koma, not because we were Ikwere, and not because we were Ikulu. And I use the last ethnic group because that is my ethnic group, and it is the only opportunity we ever have of being heard. So I think I need to take advantage of that opportunity. What we are presenting here today is a total summary of what we finally encountered when this journey started. I will now attempt to summarize the 7 volumes. Volume 1 is titled Origins of the Commission. It addresses the circumstances surrounding the setting up of the Commission against the backdrop of Nigeria's national history, because we wanted to ask the question, how did Nigeria get to the point that it got to? This volume seeks to place before Nigerians a rear view mirror of where we are coming from and how we ended up where we did. It addresses the brief mutational phases of the Commission, that is, its mutation from being a panel to being a commission, from reviewing our nation's history of violations over only a 5-year period as initially indicated by the government, and the 3 months period within which we were asked to submit the report. We've now ended up with 3 years, But we also tried to show how we came by the volume of material that we will soon present to you. The Commission experienced the true spirit of democracy during its first encounter with the President. Right from the very hour before the inauguration, and I make this point with all sense of responsibility, and I think that it is only Justice Oputa that had the rare privilege of making the President, a retired general, act with immediate effect. Because when we first had a meeting with the President before the inauguration, the chairman mentioned to him our nagging anxiety over the time frame within which we were asked to not only review the issue of human rights violations, because it was supposed to be from January 1st, 1994, and we thought that that period of history could not capture the range of human rights violations. And I remember very well, the President took his pen. I don't remember whether it was actually his pen, but as a president, I'm sure you can take anybody's pen. But he took his pen and crossed out those dates. And I still have my own copy, because I think it's very important, because he crossed out the dates and wrote as soon as possible. I'm making this point because I think that for us was one of the points at which it became very clear that the President's mind was at least in the right place as far as seeing this commission through was concerned. Volume 2 is titled The International Context of the Commission's Mandate. In this volume, the Commission sought to draw the attention of the Nigerian government and Nigerians to the nature of the nation's international obligations. We felt very convinced that Nigeria, although not being an island unto itself, that we needed to understand the context in which this commission had been set up. And we needed to place the work of the commission within an international framework in order that we can at least hold the feet of the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people to fire when we realize what not only our domestic responsibilities, but what our international obligations were. And we thought that if we did this, we'll be able to help not only the government, but the people of Nigeria to understand that we're not just operating in a blank space. For example, Nigeria has signed or ratified many international legal documents. And in Volume 2, we try to align the work of our commission with those international obligations. Nigeria, for example, is a signatory to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, International Convention on Political Rights, Conventions on the Rights of the Child, International Conventions on the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, Principles on Effective Prevention and Investigation of Extra-Legal, Arbitrary, and Summary Executions, Conventions against Torture. And we're therefore arguing that if Nigeria, even if the Nigerian government at any point in time tried to do the kind of things that we were told a few years ago, that we should be allowed enough space to organize ourselves because of sovereignty, that we had our own freedom to do as we wanted. We tried in this volume to demonstrate to Nigerians that indeed we really cannot do what we would like to do, whether in the name of religion or in the name of culture. In Volume 3, which is titled Research Reports, here the Commission became aware of its own inadequacies and also the inadequacy of the mandate. And we therefore thought that if we limited the work of this Commission to just the memoranda, we would have excluded majority of Nigerians who, through no fault of their own, are unable to write. We would have also excluded a majority of Nigerians who, through no fault of theirs, have no access to the newspapers, have no access to radio, and have no access to television. So we therefore commissioned researchers in areas that were coterminous with the 6 geopolitical zones. We asked SEDAT, for example, which is headed by Dr. Bala Usman in Samaru Zaria, to look at very critically at the issue of human rights violations, written or unwritten, articulated or unarticulated, to dig up historical material of the processes of evolution of human rights violations right across the 2 geopolitical zones, namely the Northeast and the Northwest. We asked an organization headed by Professor Aaron Gara called AfriGov to look at the North Central Zone. We asked the Eastern Union mandate headed by Dr. Ato Nwanko, to look at the Southeast. We asked the Center for Advanced Social Science, headed by Professor Omafume Onoge, to look at the South, and we asked Development Policy Center, headed by Professor Akin Mabogunje, to look at the Southwest. The idea then was for us to help present raw data, not just for the government, but for researchers in future who might wish to know what has really happened in Nigeria. Because we believe that although the Commission was not capable of capturing all this, but we thought that this kind of record was necessary for the sake of reshaping our history. We were of the view that a lot of human rights violations had occurred outside the purview of the media, before what I have often referred to as the CNNization of the world. Because before CNN came, I mean, after CNN, nothing is the same in terms of what is happening around the world and even the whole contest for human rights. But when you cast your minds back to maybe the last 20 or so years, we know that a lot of things happened under the table. So volume 3 is quite a bulky, but it's tons and tons of material, but the Commission tried to summarize that into one single volume. Again, we are hoping that the result of those findings, which are largely 6 different volumes, but compressed into one, will become material that will go into our national archives. Volume 4 is titled Summary of the Proceedings. And this volume attempted to reduce to just a page and a half or 2 pages the public hearings that took place every day, from 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in some days. We attempted to summarize it. So if you take volume 4, for example, you can run through what took place, whether it's in Lagos, whether it's in Enugu, whether it's in Kano, on a particular day. And we were doing all this conscious of the fact that 50 years, 100 years from hence, although we Nigerians don't treasure history, but we know that there will be children or grandchildren who would like to know, after reading or hearing that their parents appeared before the Oputa panel, they would like to know what exactly it was that their parents said. Volume 5 is titled Findings and Recommendations. And to my mind, and I think the chairman, this is our position in the Commission, that this is perhaps the most important volume in the report. Here, we were very convinced that although we could make institutional reforms, but there were small people and there were big people. But we felt that in fairness to everybody who had come before the Commission, there was need for the Commission to sit down and review what presentations had been made. It didn't matter whether well-paid lawyers had made you look ridiculous when you were making your presentation. The Commission still went through every case, and on the basis of the evidence, it was able to arrive at a conclusion. So, Volume 5 is actually findings and recommendations on every case that came before the Commission. Volume 6 is titled Reparation, Restitution, and Compensation. And I believe that it is likely to be the most ideologically contentious volume. However, again, we believe that the federal government and the people of Nigeria need to be assisted. Because, and I appeal to the government that it will do well to examine very critically the substance of this volume beyond the exigencies of politics and the reality of the moment, but to look at this volume rather dispassionately. Because the Commission has gone to great lengths to look at Nigeria's history against the backdrop of the historical experiences of other countries that have had to go on this road that we have gone through. The many countries in Latin America, for example, who experienced military rule in the same way that we did. And before we started our report, we had a meeting, a 3-day brainstorming session, in which we discussed with them, and it became very clear that the legacy of military rule had a logic of its own. So we have shared experiences with other people. We've looked at their recommendations, and we've also looked at the way they handle compensation and restitution. But I am also aware that there are many philosophical justifications as to why compensation, restitution, and reparation are very difficult questions. There are many questions people ask. Who will pay? People say, whom will you pay to? How do you verify? But we are not trivializing life, because there are those who will say, we cannot pay for life. But I argue here, we try to argue here that indeed perhaps we are suffering from the problem of thinking in vernacular and speaking in English. it creates great difficulties. And using the word like compensation is probably a word that we can't really capture because we don't have a better word. But I think the issues that the Commission has tried to address is to say it's not about money. It's not even about whom we are going to give money. It's about the recognition, physical recognition of things that have taken place. I remember that the famous South African poet, Dennis Brutus, I mean, he traveled from the United States to South Africa to collect his own check, which was his compensation. But I imagine that the cost of his ticket was more than what he finally collected from the government. But he was anxious to do that because that was one way of the government saying to him, we are really sorry, we acknowledge what we did. So we've tried to help government and help the authorities by going very, very closely, as I said, at the experiences of other nations and making very concrete recommendations because we believe that whichever way we handle, whether it's compensation, restitution, and reparation, it is not a government initiative, it is a collective issue. And I think that if Nigerians can be made to understand that they are all stakeholders in this process, then it will help us to come to a point in which all of us suddenly realize that there goes I, but for the grace of God, because nobody knows what can happen to him or to her tomorrow. So, as I said, we are very aware of the fact that this is a very difficult volume, but we have gone to great lengths to provide enough material to help guide the government in coming to a decision. Volume 7 is titled Summary, Conclusions, and Recommendations, and it is exactly what it says. Here we attempt a general summary that explains in a wider context what various segments of the Nigerian society must do as to make human rights part of our national discourse. And we are saying here that by setting up this commission, the federal government was, let me say, bold enough to hold itself to the mirror. And we are hoping that Nigerians as communities, as families, as individuals can also have the courage to hold themselves to the mirror, because if you hold yourself, if you call a meeting of your family, and here just as an aside, tell you something that happened to a friend of mine who came to me to say, you know, he had 5 children. He's dead now. He had a wife and 5 children. And he said, Father, you know, I am trying to help my children to really grow up. So every decision we want to take in the house, whether it is changing a tire, the food to buy, we always sit down. We have what we call a round table to discuss. Because I want my children to grow up mature. Until one day, I think money was beginning to finish. That is not English, but you understand. Money was beginning to finish for him, and he wanted to change his son's school. So he called the son. He said, listen, you know, I've decided that rather than you going to Kwali, that's actually where the son was. He said, I want you now to go back to another school in Kaduna. And the boy reflected and said, Daddy, thank you very much, but I want us to have a round table. Now, he realized that if they had a round table, his son will win the sympathy of his 4 brothers and sisters, and they will not be able, he and his wife will not be able to succeed. So I'm making this point because I think the federal government of Nigeria and state governments have a very difficult task ahead, but we're just trying to explain in this volume that each and every one of us may need to have the courage to realize that we are being called upon to do almost exactly what the federal government has done. Finally, maybe we call it volume 8, but it is a volume that deals with appendices. These appendices are quite bulky, but they're also very complicated. The first is a verbatim recording of all the proceedings, including those who coughed while the commission was sitting. Even those who cried, their cries are being recorded because it said there very clearly. The verbatim report indicates where you cried, where the president shook hands with whom, and so on, and all those things are there. So if you want to look at them, you'll have to sit down, buy more than 1 pair of glasses because you need to read over 30,000 pages of material. The second is a list of 2,000 counsels that appeared before the commission. The third is a comprehensive list of about 1,700 exhibits that were tendered, from books to Abiola's handwritten letters, all kinds of things. Again, we have saved all this because we believe that at the end of our work, these are documents that researchers in future will be in a position to look at. We also have a category of cases which were dealt with administratively, but they are not listed for public hearings. It's not every case that came to the commission that was necessarily hard. We had cases, for example, from the Federal Civil Service, and many civil servants who were routinely dismissed under Decree 17. Those cases, we put them all together. They were not for public hearings. They went to the office of the head of service, but all the lists are being saved in one volume. We also have addresses that were submitted by the various councils. And then finally, we had submissions that were made by what I call ethno-regional groups, namely Ohanese, Arewa Consultative Forum, Afenifere, Middle Belt Joint Action Committee, South-South, Ijo Youth, and so on and so forth. Indeed, when the commission took this step, it wanted to help Nigerians to do what Nigerians didn't want to do. And if you go back and look at the records, there is hardly anything that was said during those moments that is not really what would have been said at our so-called, whether a sovereign or national conference. Because if you look at the records, when Ohanese made its submission, there were groups within the East that said, no, you have no right to speak for us, because if the Igbos are making this claim, we, the minorities, suffered in your hands. So don't say that. When Arewa came and said, no, we don't agree with all this, Middle Belt Joint Action Committee said, Arewa, you have no right to speak on our behalf. We also suffered under your hands. When Afenifere came and told their own story, we discovered that nobody's hands were really and truly clean. Again, all those materials have been very well preserved for the sake of our history and the records. In conclusion, we think that the process of this commission, whatever it may be its limitations, that the success has many phases. First, we managed to get the story out, despite all odds and despite the cynicisms of many Nigerians. Nigerians said to us that the commission was a toothless bulldog, but my response to journalists who said that was, a toothless bulldog, we have accepted that we are bulldog. That is good enough. A bulldog doesn't have to bite every time. So there were people who called us toothless bulldog. They said Justice Oputa had already packed his bags and gone to Oputa. They said the commission was being manipulated. There were all kinds of stories, but we are happy to say that all those prejudices, all those anxieties actually helped to shape the final report of the commission. I wish to restate that what we have done here is to make Nigerians to reverence history and to adopt record keeping. We are prayerfully hoping that these records will be adequately taken care of so that they can become most valuable research material. A situation whereby in the next 5 years we can find these records in international research outlets after Nigeria, but not here, outside Nigeria, but not here in Nigeria, is totally unacceptable. But I understand that at this point, I am preaching. Let me end by telling you a little story which I had about a thief man. This is if you meet the bishop, the Catholic bishop of Makurdi, you can ask him, he will confirm this story. It's about a thief man who, around Zakibiam, where they farm yams. Zakibiam is remembered not for the yams they produce, but for the events that took place last year, unfortunate events. But anyway, it was dry season and the rains were not coming. And this poor farmer had run out of money. But he was a righteous man, like all ordinary poor people in Nigeria are. So he knelt down and prayed to God. He said, God, I don't want to steal. But as you know, I farm yams. I want to look after my wife, my children, and live a life of integrity. I just want you to help me to find 5,000 naira. I don't want to steal, but I don't want to beg. Help me to get 5,000 naira so I can buy fertilizer and farm and then live a good life. You know, I go to church, I go to mass every morning. So please answer my prayer. Well, after some time, God apparently, it was like God was busy with other things. So he decided, in order to hasten this matter, to put the record straight. So he wrote a letter. Dear God, he told God all these things. But after he finished writing his letter, he said, wait a minute, where does God live? How can I get his address? So he asked a few people, how do you send a letter to God? Every team man he asked, we've never sent a letter to God. We don't know where. We know the man is in heaven somewhere, but nobody has ever sent a letter. So somebody said, well, we have a parish priest here. He is God's representative. He should know where God's address is. So the man wrote his own address, put his letter in an envelope, and then simply said to God. So he tiptoed at night and put the letter under the parish priest's door. So the priest got up very early in the morning to prepare for Mass, and he stumbled on the letter. He opened the letter, read the letter. This man is asking for 5,000 naira. So he said to himself, well, I mean, we're here, we're God's representative. We might as well try and help our brothers and sisters. So he made an announcement at morning Mass. Unfortunately, the poor man didn't come to Mass, so people collected money. And at the end, he counted the money was about 3,000 naira. So he went back to his room, ran around, put everything together, got about 1,500 naira more. Remaining, he said, well, at least let's give this man 4,500. So he put the money in an envelope because the man had his address. So late at night, he tiptoed to the man's house, put the letter under, but he wrote a very nice letter and ended up by saying, from your father, God. So the man got up in the morning, stumbled on his letter. He read the letter, counted the money, put the money in his pocket and ran to church. So after Mass, the priest went, but he remained in church to thank God. He said, God, I always know you will answer our prayers. And I'm happy that whenever I have a problem, I will always write to you. But please, when next I make a request, bring it to me. Our parish priest stole 500 naira from the money he sent. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Chief Justice of the Federation, it is my great pleasure to, I don't want to say call on because I think the Master of Ceremony will do that, but His Lordship, the Chairman of our Commission, will now hand over the report formally. Thank you very much.
Supreme Court, who left bold imprints on the legal sands of our
come together and move on as a nation, as reconciliation is the foundation of human progress. We now patiently wait as we expect Honorable Justice Chukwudifu Oputa to address this gathering and formally present the report of the Human Rights in Violations Investigation Commission.
Commander-in-Chief and to the nation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Justice Chukwudifu Oputa, CFR, Chairman, Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission.
Your Excellency, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic, Your Excellency, Atiku Abubakar, Turakin Adamawa, Vice President, other excellencies here present, my Lord Justice Mohammed Uwais, CON, Chief Justice of Nigeria, members of the Executive Council here present, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the National Assembly here present, Your Excellencies, State Governors here present, traditional rulers and chiefs, honorable commissioners from our different states, permanent secretaries, federal and state, very, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. When I was in the court, we had a practice. One justice will be assigned to write the lead judgment. And after delivering the lead judgment, you either concur or deliver your own. After listening to my son in one sense and my father in another sense, Reverend Father Matthew, which happens to be my name too. I used to be called Matthew, and the president used to be called Matthew too, so we are three Matthews here. Hassan Kuka, I feel like just saying, I concur. But I know many people would not like that. And when I was in the Supreme Court, I concurred only once. Some people may like to ask why in this outlandish dress. I wore it on purpose to remind myself that I once belonged to the Honorable Society of Grazing, and that's how we dress there. And to remind members of the legal profession that they have a duty to maintain the dignity at the bar. What we are seeing now makes us a bit fidgety and afraid of the future. Now coming to the task before me, it is with a heart full of joy. It is with utmost humility, and yet with humble pride, that I rise on behalf of all the members of the Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission to present what I may call this epilogue, what I may call our signature tune. On the 4th day of June 1999, a panel for the investigation of human rights violations in Nigeria was constituted by statutory instrument number 18 of 1999 under the Tribunals of Inquiry Act, Cap 447, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 1919. On the 4th day of October 1999, that panel was upgraded into our present commission, namely Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission. Our first term of reference is, here I quote, to ascertain the causes, the nature, the extent of all gross violations of human rights committed in Nigeria between the 15th day of January 1966 and the 28th day of May 1999. Then I thought about it. Today is the 28th day of May, not 1999, but 2002. Is it not significant? Is it not prophetic that we are submitting the final report on the 28th day of May? There must be something about the 28th day of May. On the 14th day of June 1999, When our commission was inaugurated and we were all sworn in, His Excellency, the President and Commander-in-Chief, in his inaugural address, made the following significant observations. 1, it is our determination to heal the wounds of the past and to quickly put the ugly past behind us so as to continue to stretch our hands of fellowship and friendship to all Nigerians for complete reconciliation, based on truth and the knowledge of the truth in our land. 2, we want to reconcile all those who feel alienated by past political events, heal wounds inflicted on our people, and restore harmony in our country. 3, we want the injured and the seemingly injured to be reconciled with their oppressors or seeming oppressors. And the President ended, this is the way to move forward. Then the President charged the Commission as follows, charged us, quote, to scale over this unprecedented, wicked, and oppressive era in our history. And what is more, he charged us to propose measures for such an era never to repeat itself. That was our mandate. To give us some courage, the President assured us, here I quote, this administration would do everything possible to address all issues that tend to bring our country into disrepute or perpetuate injustice, conflict, and the violation of human rights. He then alerted us. He warned us that it was not going to be easy. He said, here I quote, the task before you is not only demanding, but also vital for the socio-political well-being of our people and Nigeria, unquote. As the President observed above, the Commission's task was not easy at all. It was very, very demanding. And it has been 3 years of toil, 3 years of labor, 3 years of hard work, every year a year, every month a month, and every day a day. The journey from the 14th day of June 1999 to the 28th day of May 2002 had been long. The road had been very, very bumpy and difficult. And there had been many, many problems. Some operational, some methodological, some as a result of irregular and insufficient funding. The Commission also labored under extreme pressure. During our public sittings, we sat daily from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Unfortunately for the chairman, he cannot rise, because if he rises, they cannot form a quorum. So the chairman had to sit. Others may rise, go to the toilet and come back, but not the chairman. And we did that every day. People wondered how we did that. I wonder too. Then there was a very high expectation of our people. Everywhere you went, they thought we were a sort of Father Christmas, distributing compensations, gifts to everybody. But we are consoled by the fact that these problems are not peculiar to our commission. Looking around other similar commissions, we discovered they had similar problems. Truth and Reconciliation Commissions around the world had similar problems. Whether it's in Guatemala, or Chile, or Argentina, or South Africa, or Kenya, they had the same problems. Then we discovered that Truth and Reconciliation Commissions all over the world are virtually never smooth, never pleasant, never well-funded, never politically uncomplicated. But we are grateful to God that we have survived it all. We've gone through all these vicissitudes and arrived today in one piece. We are happy to see this day, the 28th day of May 2002. Now you've just seen the film Nigeria Unites. If you look at the inaugural address of Mr. President, he mentioned many times our country, our nation, our people. We used to hear the saying that Nigeria is a geographical expression. Even there, geography has united Nigeria. What remains is for the people of Nigeria to unite themselves under that geographically united Nigeria. Look at our Constitution. The preamble to all our constitutions contain these. One, to live in unity and harmony as one indivisible and indissoluble sovereign state. Two, to provide a constitution for the purpose of promoting the good government. I mention again the good government, not just government, the good government and welfare of all our people. When people define democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people, I say that's well said. But emphasis should be government for the people. Government of the people will agree. By the people will agree. Where there's difficulties, government for the people. That is why our Constitution talks about good government, not just government, good government. Three, our national anthem refers to Nigeria as our fatherland. And we are to serve that fatherland with all our hearts, with all our might. And that fatherland is to be for us one nation, bound in freedom, peace, and unity. Fourthly, our national colors are green, white, green. These are splendid colors. They're prophetic. They're symbolic. Green symbolizes hope, fecundity, prosperity. White symbolizes justice and peace. And these are our expectations, our aspirations, our objectives, our common values. When President Bill Clinton visited Nigeria, he signed a joint declaration with our president, and there he referred to what he called a Nigeria worthy of its people's dreams, a Nigeria worthy of its people's dreams. He also referred to what he called a new Nigeria. And when Mr. President took office on the 29th, he made a speech and charged all of us. He said, "Let us rise as one. Let us rise as one to face the task ahead and turn this daunting scene into a new dawn." Yes, we dreamt dreams. In 1960, when we won our freedom, we had a national anthem. The words are very challenging. Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear motherland. And he said, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood, we stand Nigerians all. I'm proud to serve our sovereign motherland, preaching unity, universal brotherhood. Then the second stanza of that anthem said, our flag shall be our symbol, that truth, peace, and justice reign. In peace or battle, honored, and this we count as gain. To hand on to our children a banner without stain. Did we do that? No. And that is why this commission has been to restore that damaged image of our country. And in the last stanza of that anthem, we prayed, O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. If you succeed in building a nation where no man is oppressed, there will not be any need to have another Oputa panel. No need at all. If you succeed to do that, then you have arrived at where the law has achieved its greatest height, leading to a just human society. Now, if you look at all the messages from our former national anthem, from our present national anthem, from our Constitution itself, all these messages sound one common note. That is what the artist told you, Nigeria, unite. The message is clear. Unity, national unity, loyalty, not to your state, not to your local government, not to your tribe, but to Nigeria. Loyalty. Patriotism. I really wonder whether I can have patriotism to anything except to the nation. That is the message from all these common ideals we've been trying to point out. Now, all these again argue against what is now existing in our country. There was a time when Altini was mayor in Enugu. Another now, nobody bothered Nobody noticed he was different from any other man in Enugu. There was a time when the mayor of Port Harcourt was from Benin. Nobody bothered. You cannot have that now. Why? It must be son of the soil, indigenous. Even when one state is split into two states, you ask the people who were yesterday your brothers to pack away. Why are we like that? And that is what this commission has set its face to try find answers to these problems and proffer solutions. Why do we have this son of the soil against strange element syndrome? Why? Why do we have religious intolerance? Every religion I know of preaches the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and love. Now, we have twisted and turned religion into something which is not meant to be. Religion should be a unifying factor, not something that divides us. All these negative elements should now give way to a new dawn. Now, with apologies to Professor Jerry Gana and his group, a new dawn of a people united, a future assured. With a culture of unity in diversity, with a culture of respect for human rights, because of our common brotherhood. That's something that runs across human beings, that we're all made by the same God. That is the logic that goes through all of us. If we are the descendants or sons and daughters of the same God, then we are brothers and sisters. If we fail to behave like brothers and sisters, then we have degraded our status to that of beasts, no longer human. I'm stressing this because unless we have a base, a solid foundation of common citizenship, respect for human rights, in a new Nigeria, unless we have that, all the recommendations we may make will not achieve the purpose. It will be like pouring new wine into old bottles, and they will not achieve the purpose of healing the wounds of the past. They will not achieve reconciliation. They will not restore harmony. Our recommendations will be ineffective to do any of these things until we take the first step of Nigeria uniting, Nigeria becoming one. And I want to emphasize here that the responsibility of building this new Nigeria is a task, if I may quote General Gawan, that must be done. Our president is very familiar with that because he helped to do that task. I want to emphasize this because if we do not build this new Nigeria, all our efforts are in vain. And the burden is on all of us, high, low, alike. No one from outside can do that for us. No white paper, no matter how well written, can unite Nigeria, no. We Nigerians should decide to build a new Nigeria, and we should consciously, assiduously, relentlessly work hard to achieve that dream. This will definitely require considerable wisdom, immense courage, adamantine will, requisite vision, not shackled by personal greed or self-interest or by ethnic or religious considerations. Now to our terms of reference. The Commission has painfully considered its various terms of reference, weighed all the available evidence on the scales of justice, reparation, reconciliation, and made its recommendations that you find in Volume 7. During our public hearings, most of the victims cried out for justice, and rightly too. But they derailed along the way. They said it's either justice or revenge. But justice is much more than retributive justice or criminal justice. We have individual justice, we have social justice, we have justice for the nation. In other words, justice has many, many faces. In our report, we had to contend with these different faces of justice. And in the end, we came to the conclusion that under our mandate, it has to be justice with a human face. It has to be justice that takes within her stride restoration of harmony and reconciliation. Revenge is a form of justice, no doubt. But well did Francis Bacon say years ago that revenge is a kind of wild justice, which the more man's nature runs to, the more ought the law to weed it out. In our own times, Mahatma Gandhi got it right when he said, an eye for an eye will end up leaving the whole world blind. We in the Human Rights Violations Investigation Commission will not want to apply any type of justice that will leave Nigerians all blind. For that reason, we decided that our best options lies in justice that will lead to the healing of wounds, restoring harmony, achieving reconciliation. These were the dictates of our mandate, and this will make strange bedfellows with revenge, retributive criminal justice. Reconciliation is a way to peace, and we badly need peace in our country. Revenge is not a way to peace. History has proved that revenge and recrimination are very poor chisels, very, very poor chisels with which to hew out stones of reconciliation, stones of national unity, stones of lasting peace. Compensation and reparation are forms of individual justice, and these we recommended for people to look at and see how and when it can be achieved. But reconciliation is a plenitude of justice and human progress. Well, somebody was talking to me about Latin, then let's have a bit of Latin. In reconciliare stat progressio humana. It is only in reconciliation that we can make progress in our societies. Healing the wounds. From our inquiries, the Commission discovered that the period under review, 15th day of January 66, 28th day of May 99, the greatest offenders and gross violators of the human rights of Nigerians were the military dictatorships and their overzealous security outfits. But they were not the only offenders. They were not the only culprits. We wounded ourselves. We wounded one another in communal clashes and religious riots. We are also equally guilty. While the government and the powers that be apologize to Nigerians, we, the citizenry, will also have to apologize to one another. This will be the first step in the healing process. This will be the first step in the process of reconciliation. And that is, to our minds, the best way forward. Now to the presentation. Finally, I have come to the presentation of our report. By Article 16 of our terms of reference, the Commission shall make and furnish to the President a full report. We have that in 8 volumes of its proceedings. We have that, we thought it was 50 cartons, now we have them in 65 cartons piled over here. Recommendations and findings we have down there. Before I call on the President, I will thank him for giving us this wonderful opportunity to serve. I will now present the volumes of our report. When we met in the State House, we told the President there were 50. But when we came, we saw that there are now about 67 cartons like this. No one man can carry one of them. This has kept us busy for 3 years. Some of them are in the car. So we thank Mr. President for this wonderful opportunity to serve Nigeria.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. His presence at the open hearing of the Commission, taking the witness box, facing the rigors of counsel cross-examination, was an unequivocal demonstration of humility and his belief in the supremacy of the law. Nobody is above the law. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I respectfully invite His Excellency Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR, who has just received the report, to deliver his address. Your Excellency.